Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Snakening as we cover the ongoing efforts of Ukraine's backers to throw it under the bus and evade any responsibility for anything that's happened in the last 2 years. And today, we're going to look at a G-Slur op brought to us by the dynamic duo Scholz and Biden. But before that, maybe just a word on why this series is being made. I thought it would be cool to cover the changing of the narrative in real time. That is, as these articles keep coming out, all at around the same point in time, all kind of weaving together into a narrative. I think it's interesting that we document them as they come so we can go back later and say, oh, these came out at like random, specific intervals, like every other week. And this was the topic and that kind of thing. Because I think once you start putting together all the videos I've been doing on this, you can see there is a definitive trend. Now, obviously, I'm cherry picking specific articles, but I don't think you saw things like the massive stuff we had in the Wall Street Journal or the Time magazine. I don't think we really had that a year or two ago. There has been a decisive shift into trying to avoid blame or trying to get the public ready to blame Zelensky or accept some sort of loss or ceasefire or otherwise forget about everything they've been saying for the last 2 years. So that being said, let's get into this. So this is a 24-hour G-Slur op brought to us by Biden and Scholz, and it is as passive-aggressive and lame as you would expect. The U.S. and Germany allegedly hope to nudge Ukraine to negotiate with Russia through a carefully targeted scope of arms deliveries, the German tabloid Bild reported on November 24th, citing an anonymous government source. Now, have they actually been having this discussion? I'm sure it's come up. Do they have a real plan to do this? I actually have no idea. They could not. I think, though, that this is being leaked for a reason, that this was deliberately given to the press to give Zelensky the impression and the public the impression that this is going to happen, to kind of test the waters and to try to get them used to the idea. Because a lot of the time you just put stuff out there, not necessarily that because you're going to do it, but because you want to give a certain impression to people. So a couple of days ago, I can't recall if it was Shoigu or someone else, but someone in the Russian government talked about how they had all these sleeper agents inside Ukraine and they were going to do Maidan 3 and overthrow Zelensky. And I don't think that's probably the case at this point. I think they're just doing it to stir the pot and to cause a sense of paranoia. So if your enemy starts talking about how they have all these deep cover like guys, that's got to scare you, and you're going to start looking over the back and your back shoulder, and you're going to start getting paranoid. So I think this could be a case of that. We've seen this a couple other times with the imagine if you got no U.S. aid, and just some of the other stuff. Also, I think that this is their attempt to cover for the fact that they don't have the weapons to give Ukraine by trying to make it look like, oh, well, we're deliberately withholding them. This L is actually a W. It's part of our 4D chess plan to bring about peace in Eastern Europe. So U.S. President Joe Biden and German Chancellor Olaf Scholz reportedly do not plan to directly pressure Ukraine's President Zelensky to the negotiation table, Bild said. Kiev's two leading military donors instead plan to provide the exact quantity and quality of arms to ensure that Ukraine can hold the front and have a strong negotiating position, but not enough to fully liberate its territory. See, guys, it's deliberate. They aren't providing them enough on purpose. This is such like a passive aggressive, just G-Slur, like attempting to gaslight Zelensky. Zelensky should realize that things cannot go on like this without any external requests, the source told Bild. He should address the nation of his own free will and explain that negotiations must be launched. How is it free will? They're literally saying we're going to run this like behind the scenes 24-hour op to force him into negotiations. Like how is that of his free will? So something I've noticed is the U.S. does not want to talk to Russia because ultimately this conflict will probably be solved by the EU and the U.S. and Russia sitting down and coming to some sort of agreement. So the scapegoat is to say it's up to Zelensky to negotiate with Russia. Now, I was reading some stuff today, and the guy who might potentially coup Zelensky, Zelensky, is apparently a Banderite. So if Zelensky tried to negotiate with Russia, there's a good chance he'd be overthrown in a coup. I mean, that might happen anyways at this point in time. But the idea is that they're saying, "Oh, we support negotiations, but Zelensky has to do it. We're not going to do it." And Zelensky's not going to negotiate. So, like I said, it's a bunch of gaslighting. It's a bunch of reverse psychology. It's all very passive aggressive. In case Kiev and Moscow do not agree to open talks, Berlin and Washington hope that the front line solidifies, resulting in a frozen conflict without any formal agreements. If anybody noticed, a couple months back, they started using this term frozen conflict. Like after it seemed like Ukraine wasn't going to win, they're like, we're going to freeze the conflict. It's going to be a frozen conflict. That's the new plan. It's like Minsk, only without Minsk, the source told Bild, referring to the 2024, referring to the agreements. The Kiev Independent could not verify the report. As the stability of the pro-Kiev alliance faces growing challenges, media reports emerged earlier claiming that the West plans to push Ukraine into negotiations with Russia, even at the cost of concessions. Western officials denied these reports, insisting that any peace talks with Moscow are up to Ukraine's decision. So I think the other part of this is if they can gaslight Zelensky into thinking that they're going to drop him unless he negotiates with Russia, they can get him to negotiate with Russia. And then once he comes to an agreement with Russia, they can say, "Oh, well, we didn't want him to negotiate with Russia. He just went ahead and did that without us. We would have supported him into the end." Do you see where I'm going with this? It's once again, it's hard to know some of the time who's snaking who. If the U.S. is snaking Europe, if Europe's snaking Zelensky, if Zelensky's snaking both of them, I don't know. We are not aware of any conversations with Ukraine about negotiations outside of the peace formula structure. I'm sure there's nobody's talking to Russia behind the scenes. There's no back channel diplomacy. Zelensky also denied that he would be under pressure from allies to enter in peace talks. No one among our partners is pressuring us to sit down with Russia, talk to it, and give it something, the president said earlier in November. Yeah, that's 100% is the case. There's these two guys aren't cooking anything behind the scenes. Them or their staff didn't leak this story to try to gaslight Zelensky. This is not a 24-hour op. It's just this whole thing is just a big coincidence that we have all these articles coming out about how we might drop Zelensky unless he seeks peace. It's time to seek peace, but we're not going to do it ourselves because we don't want to be humiliated. Zelensky's going to have to take the L on our behalf. That just seems to be where we're going. So that's another episode of Snakening. I hope you enjoyed it. God bless, and I'll talk to you guys again real soon.